Hi, I'm Andy. This is C Sharp Puzzles, Puzzle 1. I'm just going to get you to put some text on the screen and get some user input so we're interacting with the computer. And from that we can start doing a lot in later puzzles. Just a word of motivation for you. No one starts swimming by swimming the English Channel from England to France, or the first time they ever went swimming they swam across the Great Lakes of North America. Now, you start off in a swimming pool with armbands, but some people make it to that level where they can do that kind of swimming. You're the same. It just takes practice, and you suddenly find that the more practice you've got, the more your computer kung fu becomes stronger. Like you end up being able to make the computer do stuff that you wouldn't have thought otherwise. Like concepts start appearing, and an awful lot of these concepts you learn in one programming language are very similar to another programming language. Like I said, I'm doing this course for C Sharp. I've got another sort of mirror course for Python, and you find the words are different, some of the libraries are different, but the structure's the same. So if you know one programming language, you know them all to a degree. I've seen senior coders come in who, they don't know, maybe they're React people and they've got a job at doing Angular. They learn Angular in like a month because the process of doing it's the same. What they're typing needs a lot of Googling, but if you're a builder, you don't learn individual bricks. You learn how to build the house. The different kinds of bricks are just your daily tools. So anyway, let's get puzzling, let's get interacting with the computer, and then we can make it do stuff. Let's take a look. The first thing we do is we go to the GitHub repo, the link's in the description, you can see the URL there. Open the code dropdown and copy the HTTPS URL to the repo. There's a README file here explaining the puzzles, but I'll get into them in more detail in a second. So I'm using GitHub Desktop to clone the repo. File, clone repository, go to URL tab. Just paste that link in there, and in your local path, make sure you're saving it where you want to save it. I'm saving it in a folder in C drive where I'm going to put all my repositories. Hit clone, and it should download the code. So if we go to Git repos, here it is. An alternative way of doing this, as I've shown you before, if I delete this, you can use terminal. So we can just copy that URL to my folder, CD for change directory, paste it in there, git clone, git clone, not sit clone, and then copy that URL again, and it will download the code. Excellent. There's the code. So either one of those ways would work. I think you should be using a GitHub Desktop or SourceTree or some other Git client, because that's what we use in real development jobs. Doing it by the command line, it's just too difficult when there's lots of people working on the same code base. So with Visual Studio opened up, expand beginner puzzle and open program CS. So at the very bottom of this file is this part. This is what's going to run the console programs above, the console functions, methods, whatever you want to call them. So I'm running example A, example B, and example C. I've commented out the sort of start of the puzzles. Okay, so when you want to try the puzzles, you would uncomment this and have a go. Let me run you through some examples. So example A is simply just printing a line of text. Would you rather be a parking enforcement officer or a clown? The answer is clown here, guys. I hope there's not many parking enforcement officers watching this. This is a new line character, just making sure the text starts in a new line and doesn't just get added on to this sort of header I've made up here. This console.readline allows the program to take input from the user. and it's saving it to the variable choice. The question mark here is just simply allowing this to be nullable. At the moment, it's so simple. I'm just trying to avoid sort of the green highlighting error all over the place, saying this is a null variable. The example is using string concatenation. Okay, so what it's doing is it's writing out this text and then it's just adding whatever your input is onto that text. Very simple. Now for the puzzle, it's going to look something similar to this, but it's not going to be exactly that. So the puzzle's asking you, the first puzzle, write a program that asks for your favourite colour. It should output your favourite colour is and then the favourite colour. So it's going to be exactly the same as this, except the text is going to be different. And then it's saying use string interpolation to print the answer, not string concatenation. So do not do this. That's string concatenation. I want you to use string interpolation. There are two kinds of string interpolation. Okay, so go away and research string concatenation and string interpolation. And then when you're ready, uncomment this and have a go at the puzzle. Okay. If I click run here for the beginner puzzle, it's going to open a console window and you can see the console write line is being displayed and it's waiting for your input. So it doesn't matter, I could type in anything here. There's nothing to stop me typing in anything, but I'll type in clown, I'll play along. And the output is you chose clown. It was a trick question, they are both clowns. It's ran example B and example C simply because I've uncommented them here. So example B is, I wish I had chainsaws for hands or at least nuclear arms, and it's converting everything to lowercase. Let's get rid of the capital I's and let's put lowercase i's. So it's using message.lower here to convert all this to lowercase. Puzzle B is asking you to do the same thing but to uppercase. So the format's going to be very similar to this. You have to figure out how to make that uppercase and not lowercase. If we look at example C, what's your favourite food? It's using console readline again to get the user's input. I guess pizza, I guess, is my favourite food. What's your favourite drink? Cola. If I was to take you on a date, we would have pizza and cola, but you're far too ugly for me to ask you. I forgot I wrote that. There you go, I've just called myself ugly. Fantastic. So you see here, the third example is a bit more complicated. We're using multiple prompts and multiple inputs, and we're saving them to different variables. And then it looks like we're adding them in there at the sentence. So it's asking you to do something similar here, but using file paths, okay? So what I would do to get started is comment out everything. In fact, maybe leave example A and then do puzzle A. That way you'll have your example and then you'll have your puzzle. So if you were to do something like this, I'll stop the program from running at the moment and then I'll run it again. So it's only running example A now because that's all that's uncommented, but it's also going to run puzzle A next. Clown, and see puzzle A, it's printed test 1, 2, 3. So that should be enough for you to get started. Have a go. In a real development job, they're just going to throw things like this at you. They're going to be much more complicated, but the puzzles get more and more complicated as we go on. I'm going to teach you all the basic stuff. But an awful lot of other sort of tutorial videos, they just allow you to follow along and you're not really thinking for yourself. This is very basic, but you're thinking for yourself. You have to start using console write line. You have to start using console read line to get the input. You know the difference between concatenation and string interpolation. And you start building your own little programs, and you're using existing code. And almost all the other development jobs I've had, it's unusual for you to go in and just to be a blank screen. There's other people's code there. And as a team, you'll work together to produce code that meets the same standards. So it's good to follow these examples, because imagine this is people in your team that have already written this code. Well, you don't want to go and write stuff in a completely different style. When you write your code, it will go to code review, and everyone in the team, or the senior devs in the team, will look at it. And they want to make sure it follows all their standards, and the best way to do that is to read their existing code. So you're reading the examples, you're understanding the code, and then you're kind of making it your own by writing your own code. And you're trying to use the same sort of standards and methods that already exist in the app. So have a go. This is a really easy one. You should be able to do this. The puzzles will get more complicated, and they'll teach you all the logic. Have a go, good luck. Hopefully you had an attempt at solving this puzzle. If you didn't, it's okay to just follow along with me, but it's important that you try to do these yourself. So looking at the Git repo, we were in the main branch, which contains a starting code. You will have cloned this. If you click this drop down, you see there's a solution branch. Running this will just run the fully completed program at the end. But you can also just look in here and open up program and have a look at all the answers. Don't cheat though, okay? It's just in case you get stuck. So if we open up Visual Studio, I have the starter code here. So if we go down the bottom, what I'll do is, I'll just comment out everything other than the puzzles that I'm answering. And I'll start with puzzle A. Get rid of the code here. Okay. So puzzle A is asking us to write a program that asks for your favourite colour. It should output your favourite colour is, and then the favourite colour. Use string interpolation to print the answer, not string concatenation. Okay, so it's going to look very similar to this, so we can probably just copy this and change it. Copy and paste is going to be half of your job. So, I guess what's your favourite colour? And I'm not going to call this choice. I'm going to try to be a bit more specific. I'm going to call this fav colour. Naming your variables is important. It is a choice, but we're also saving the user's favourite colour there. It's also worth noting that what I'm doing is I'm using camel case there. So in C#, the convention is to name your variables using camel case. So it would maybe look like something like that. It initially starts off with a lowercase. Only functions start off with an uppercase, so your variables will start off with lowercase, and then every other word has its own capital letter, and this looks like the humps of a camel. So that's the convention in C#, camel case. If you were using like Python or something, they use snake case. Which kind of looks like that. So don't mix and match. For example, if you were to write your variable as this, that you might have seen in other programs, that wouldn't pass code review because we're all using camel case in C#. They would ask you to change that. You'd have to go back through all your code. So okay, we are asking what the favourite colour is. I'm spelling it the British way. We're getting the input, we're saving it as fav colour. It's asking us to use string interpolation. So what I'll do is I'll just make a little note here, a little comment. Okay, so we'll do console.writeLine to do the output again. And it's just trying to print out the answer here for us, but we want to put some text in here. So probably do the new line character again if you want. Your favourite, copy and paste if we can. See, the autocomplete just pasted that in there because it thinks it knows what I want to do. So you kind of have to be a bit careful of that. New line, and also maybe just put a semicolon there. Now, how do I get this in here? So string interpolation. What you might see as a beginner is use of string.format. So you basically have string.format, you have everything inside its own parentheses. And then you have a variable like that. So 0 would be the start if there was other variables we wanted to put in here. Next one would be 1 and so on if there was another one. But we've only got one input, so we'll stick with the 0. And then it's a comma, and then whatever your variable is, so fav colour. That will print out your favourite colour is and whatever the user input there. Now you'll see this a lot. I don't like doing it this way because it looks very codey. It's very hard to read. You can imagine if this is very long and we had, you know, one here and we had another variable. It just becomes difficult to read. So this is kind of like the old school way of doing it. I'll leave that there as an answer. That should be right line. But what I'll do is I'll show you the way I would do it, and the way I'll be doing everything in all the puzzles from now on. I'll copy this. I'll just write fav colour, so the variable name, and if you put a $sign at the start, that tells it to use sort of name the variables here. I think that's a lot more readable because you know what the variable is in the position it is. But there's different reasons you can use either one of these. I much prefer this one, as you'll see in every other part of the puzzle. Okay, so let's run that. Begin the puzzle. What's your favourite colour? Let's put red. And it's printed out both of these. So both of them work. So either one of these would work. If you'd done this one, maybe your team would be like, oh, well, actually, we prefer doing it this way. Everywhere else we've done it this way. But if there's no examples, this isn't in this example, right? This is using string concatenation. They may actually want you to use string concatenation, but they've specifically asked you to use string interpolation. So what would probably happen here is you'd be setting the standard. If you use this, everyone else would probably start using that. If you use this, everyone else would start using that. They might decide later on to have a group chat and maybe refactor the code base to use this. So you see how you're kind of working with people, you're making decisions, and then people will copy your decisions. So if we go to example B, it's got a message here. I wish I had chainsaws for hands, or at least nuclear arms. And then it's using console write line, and it's just pasting in the message variable. It's not writing it out as in the previous case. And then it's converting message to lower, and it's using string concatenation again because it's adding it on to the previous string. So that would just turn these I's and everything else that's here in uppercase into lowercase. If I go down the bottom, I'll uncomment puzzle B. I can have a go. Write a program that displays the message, I was too sick to do my homework, then display the same message in all capitals, uppercase. Use string interpolation again, not string concatenation. I'm just going to copy all of this. Copy and paste as your friend. So the message this time would be this, so we can change that. And we want to change this to uppercase. And we're going to use string interpolation again. So dollar sign at the start. And then we could probably sort of convert this into what we want. So we could even just do that. So at the moment, that's going to convert that message to lowercase, whereas we want it to convert to uppercase, and there's another sort of function that does this, to upper. Okay, so what you're picking up here is that you can save strings as variables and then just print the variable. This is useful, as you'll see later on. Also, there's other things you can attach onto the variables that will affect them. So we're attaching to upper here, and it's going to have an effect in this message, and then it's going to print it out. So if I stop the previous program and I run it again, it should only run puzzle B, and it did convert everything to uppercase. Excellent. I'll close that. So that'll be the answer there. Again, you've read the code, you've learned maybe about to lower, to upper, you've seen that there's different ways of printing stuff out. Let's continue on to example C. Okay, so we can read through this and see that there's now multiple prompts for user's input, one after the other. Obviously programs run top to bottom, so it's asking the user for 2 inputs, and then it's printing out using string interpolation, yeah, both inputs. So puzzle C, ask the user to input a folder name, ask the user to input a file name, display the file path like that. Okay, that looks complicated. Using the user's inputs, you need to learn how to escape the backslash characters or use verbatim strings. Alright, let's get started. Just uncomment puzzle C at the bottom, so that it runs. It's going to look very similar to this, 2 inputs, so we can just copy those inputs. Input a folder name. And then input a file name, I guess. And name our variables correctly. Folder name and file name. And I forgot my quote mark there. Now the variable naming, again, if I'd called this folder, is it the whole file path to the folder? Or is it just the folder name? It's the folder name, and it's there in the example. So it's just being really pedantic about the naming of variables. Okay, so escape the backslash. So console write line again. We're just going to output whatever the user inputs is the folder name, but in this format. Now to escape the backslash character, what you're doing is you're essentially putting just 2 of them together. So it would look like that. If I copy, I can paste it. Now why would you do that? There are special characters that the computer's going to interpret differently than text, and it's decided that it's always going to interpret certain characters as code rather than text, unless you say otherwise. So to say otherwise, you have to escape the characters. It's also sort of useful with the quotation marks. For example, if you're doing something like this, it doesn't like that because it doesn't understand where the string starts and finishes. It thinks that's one string, and then it thinks that's one string, and it thinks hi is code, because the quotation marks determine the start and the end of the string. So you would like escape both of those to say, just print the quotation marks and then use the next one as the end of the line. So you're doing the same thing here, except you're doing it for the backslash character. You will use this in every single file path you ever use, which you're going to use a lot in your career, guys, as far as scripting goes, where you're working with files and folders. I've also noticed here you have to do your $sign to make sure that this is the variable names, string interpolation again. So I believe that should work. Let's run it, see. And put a folder name, my sexy pics folder. Put a file name, my pic. And there you go, my sexy pics folder, my pic. And I've saved it as a text file. It really should be a JPEG or something. But it's okay, it shows if it works. So what was the other thing we had to do? We had to use verbatim strings as an alternative. It's going to look something like this. Let's copy that. Now with verbatim strings, what you do is you use the @ symbol at the very start. And what the @ symbol does is it says, hey, run everything after this as text. Even the special characters, run everything as text. In Python that would be like raw string mode, I suppose. So it's actually going to print out whatever's here. So we don't want 2 backslashes, we only want 1 backslash, because it's actually going to treat all this as text and not as special characters. This symbol can be very useful for user inputs. For example, if a user was to input a file path, they're just going to input that 1 backslash. You don't type in 2 backslashes if you were to copy something from File Explorer. It would be 1 backslash. But without this, it might interpret that as a special character and it might break the program or cause you difficulties later on. So what you would do is you would save the input using the verbatim @ symbol. So that should work as well if we run that. I put a folder name, folder 1, I put a file name, my file. Yeah, and they both print out the same thing, although they look different. So I really hope you had a go at solving these puzzles. They're fairly simple, but you would be following the kind of same steps you would do later on in your career. You're given a problem, there's existing code, you have to go Google stuff, or use AI. Using AI is great. It would probably at this level just tell you the answer. But again, it's only going to give you one answer usually, so you have to look at the example and say, well, how are they doing things? What does this AI example fit in with existing code? You're going to be using that in your real development job all the time. AI is very useful, so you don't have to constantly remember all of this. So yeah, use AI, use Google. It's not cheating, it's the job, it's what we do every day. Congratulations, we got through puzzle 1. I imagine an awful lot of people watching this video would already have known that, but just to get you to puzzle 1, you had to learn an awful lot of additional things, probably about the IDE, Visual Studio and GitHub and how I structure the programs. So it's just a nice, quick, easy one to get you through it. If you're interested, I have another channel, Python Puzzles, where I do this exact same puzzle, but in Python. So this is a really good way to learn 2 languages at once. Check it out. Thank you very much.